bassy notes.
They just go in and
Yeah,
ada.
exactly.
The following contains adult themes, coarse language, and mature subject matter. Viewer discretion and desire is advised. Alrighty, we're going to get into some voice training tips with my friend
Okay.
Satine.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you
Okay.
want to give a little introduction of yourself?
Oh, I'm horrible at describing myself.
Do you want me to give you a little elevator speech?
I think that would be better, yeah.
Satine here is a personal friend of mine, IRL. I know, immersion breaking, sorry. They do performances online on a site that I would get banned if I actually said on Twitch, so I won't. I will say follow their Twitter, which would be OX Satine XO, right?
Yes, because I'm all about that symmetry.
Mm-hmm. And let's see. You do have a lower register like me, but you also have experience of getting into like higher registers and using feminine inflections and stuff.
Well, I have more of like this is my natural speaking voice right now. I have what I like to call a medium voice, where I can go higher and I can go lower. I'm still very envious of people who have naturally deeper voices, like people like Markiplier and like Corpse Husband, who can really hit those really, really bassy notes.
They just go in and ada ada.
Exactly, pretty much. But see, I can hit lower notes like that on occasion. If it's like earlier in the morning and I've had enough water and stuff like that, and I think of a lot of words. I think a lot of it comes from imitations, because doing voices like impersonations and imitations has kind of just been my thing throughout my life ever since I was a kid. I think the first voice I really got good at was Optimus Prime. Yeah, I know, nerd alert. Um,
That's only
and
going to
then
sell your brand here.
and I kind of just started branching out from there. Just like anything involving a voice is interesting to me, whether it's impersonating someone, whether it's language, whether it's linguistics, and stuff like that.
Yeah, and their inflection and how they
And
actually use
people's
their voice.
exactly. See the thing. So when I do my online
Performances.
performances, I kind of go higher like this. I really want to sell the femininity aspect of what I'm doing. But see, the thing with doing a feminine voice is it's not just about going all the way up here, because then you're doing a falsetto.
And that
And
just
that
hurts your voice.
and that not only hurts your voice, but it's very,
Obviously fake.
it's
honestly.
clockable. You do that out in public and someone's going to be like, "That's not your voice." You know?
Yeah. People be assholes like that.
Exactly. Well, and people choose the stupidest things to latch onto and, to pick apart about people. But I've found, at least in terms of doing a feminine voice, is it's not just about raising your pitch. It's factually accurate that women speak differently than men, not just in pitch, but in their inflection, in their cadence, what specific words they choose to use in their speech, and that's a good list of things to remember when you're trying to do a feminine voice. It's the difference is actually night and day. Like, if you have a practiced ear, not even if you have a practiced ear, but if you take the time to actually really listen to a woman speaking and then listen to a man speaking, it's a very, very clear difference.
Yeah, it really is. And a lot of people struggle with wanting to sound the other way, or wanting to sound differently than they do, and a lot of them don't know where to actually get started.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it also comes from, this is also a good tip if you're wanting to get into singing as well. You don't want to do it in your throat. It has to come from your diaphragm because it's more
Yeah, you want to
relaxed
feel
that
it
way.
below your throat.
Exactly.
If you want
Because
a higher pitch, you do go toward, like, up your chest towards your throat for where you want to feel it, but not actually in your throat. And if you're going lower, obviously, you try and feel it as low in your diaphragm as you can while not straining yourself too hard.
exactly. It's like because you're tightening your larynx, which is your voice box, when you're doing higher inflection and a higher pitch.
Mm-hmm.
So why the way it sounds the way it does. And you're loosening it and relaxing it when you're doing a deeper voice. Like, have you ever heard like Mongolian throat singing? Stuff like
I
that, like stuff
have.
that's really on the low end, and how they can just hold those notes and that sound for such a long time. It's because their larynx and their diaphragm is so relaxed. It just basically becomes like breathing. It
Yeah,
almost is like
they're
breathing in a way.
relaxed and practiced motions. By the way, hi Bradley, how you doing?
Hello.
We're just talking about some voice training basics.
Mm-hmm. But the important thing to remember is you don't need to have the perfect voice,
No.
because voice is your own thing. You know, if you want to initially base the voice that you want to create on someone else or something else, that's totally fine. You know, some people, can't just pull something out of thin air, so they need a template. That's totally fine.
Yeah, and
It's
then they
perfectly
use that
valid.
template to experiment a little bit with styles and eventually figure out what they um how they actually want to sound like with their voice.
Exactly. And then the important thing to remember is you need to find a voice that is sustainable, because if it's going to be a voice that you are going to be doing for a while, say hours at a time, like
Like if you're a
with what
streamer,
I exactly, I'll be doing my feminine voice for 3+ hours at a time. So, it was important for me to find, I guess you could call it a frequency or a wavelength that is sustainable. You know, I mean, but even after about 2 hours, give or take, I start to feel it a bit. It doesn't hurt necessarily, but my voice, I start to hear the cracks, and things start to relax a little bit more, and my pitch gets a little deeper. Thankfully, my viewers aren't picky about that sort of thing, and no one's ever really, mentioned anything, but I notice it, and because I'm a perfectionist when it comes to things like that, I can't shut that part of my brain off, but that's more a me thing.
yeah, I
But
can definitely relate to that myself as well.
the point being, do what is going to be good for you. You don't have to copy paste something, and you don't have to pull something out of thin air. You can sort of make it your own, is my point.
Yeah, pretty much.
Up or down.
Yeah, we're not saying you have to do any one specific way. We're just saying here's ways that we think can set up a good foundation for you to discover your true voice.
Mm-hmm. And drink lots of water.
Mm-hmm. Stay hydrated.
Yes,
It's,
your throat will thank you.
yeah, you gotta definitely you definitely have to pace yourself as well. If you go practicing too hard, you will just end up damaging your throat. But if you do
Mm-hmm.
it consistently and frequently and often enough, it does actually become your natural voice. Like I teased a little bit of where I started from with my voice.
And it's been 4 years since I actually practiced, or since I first started practicing.
It's it's a road, it's a journey. And it
Mm-hmm.
takes its time.
And don't get discouraged because, that happens to me a lot. Not with
Mm-hmm.
just voices, just in life with other things, things that I'm trying to achieve that I'm just sort of starting out at. And then I see people who have been doing it for, longer years even, and they're really succeeding at it. And I'm like, oh man, why can't I do something like that? And then I have to remind myself, you just started, first of all. And second of all, everyone's different. We're all on different paths. We all have different lives. Who knows how they got to where they are? Just focus on your own journey for the time being. And that could honestly apply to anything.
Yeah, not just voice training. Like
Yeah,
anything in life. You don't really compare yourself to the bigger people. You support their success because they've been at this a lot longer than you, and you can see and why, like, the reason why I actually used my deep voice there was not to flex on, hey, look how great my voice is. It's look at where I started from with dedication. If you want to achieve something similar, you gotta try. It's
exactly. I mean, yeah, the difference is night and day. I mean,
it
you
really
all
is.
you all heard it, you know. Um, but yeah, the main idea is to, if I had to break it down into bullet points, don't get discouraged, or if you do get discouraged, don't let that stop you. Make it your own and take your time with it because it's not going to happen overnight.
No,
It's not even going to happen in a couple of months. It's going to take lots and lots of time and
it's going to
consistency.
take years.
Hmm. You got to be patient, which is ironic because I am the least patient person that I know, but I'm still telling all of you to be patient.
Yeah, though I do feel like some people might be asking, where do I actually start with this? And what I want to say before we tell you step one, be aware that your voice is a muscle. I can't stress that enough. Just like how lifting heavy objects all day will make your arms, leg, and back sore, using your voice further from the range that you're used to tires out your voice box, and if pushed, can cause you to lose your voice. If your throat
100%.
yeah, if your throat starts to feel sore, take a break. You won't be
Hmm.
able to speak easy if you damage your voice box.
And if you're not a big fan of water, I find mint tea also helps a lot with voice work specifically.
Oh, really?
Yes. It's the combination of a warmer liquid plus the mint. So if you're a tea person, mint tea is going to be your best friend if you plan on doing a lot of voice related things, whether it's training your voice for a new pitch, whether it's singing. But yeah, Briley makes a good point. It is a muscle. So if you overexert yourself, it's going to punish you.
Yeah, it really is. But for the first step, you want an idea of what register you want to speak in naturally.
Are you looking for more masculine?
Are you looking for more feminine? Or are you looking for something a little more gender neutral? The masculine ranges of voices are along the lower end of the tonal register, feminine being
Hmm.
along the higher, and you may guess where the gender neutral voices lay in that they lay in the middle of the ranges.
Hmm.
But what you want to do to get started is find a glass surface, ideally something small like a handheld mirror. Uh, yeah, a handheld mirror works best. Some phones will actually let you do it if they don't have, or if their cover is fine. But honestly, it's only really to check if you're still within your natural register. You don't want to go too high for feminine voices or too low for masculine, as they both end up sounding fake and hurting your throat with extended use. Instead, what you do is go high or as low as you can while still making fog on the glass. And with that, you go one octave back. So if you go high enough that you're just barely making fog, you go down just a little bit so that you have a bit of a higher register to go to if you needed to shout. Because if you ignore that, you will be reverting back to older tendencies for when you need to shout or you need to cough.
Mm-hmm.
Those are honestly the things that take the longest to train out. But
That's actually a good point. I didn't think of that. Building off of what you said, you want to make it so that you'll be able to, what's the word? To go into the extremes with your chosen voice.
Yeah.
Shouting, coughing, all of that.
Yeah, you do not want to start at your extreme because you will have nowhere else to actually go without potentially really damaging your voice or other bad things that I don't really want to get into.
Yeah.
Once you know essentially what kind of range you want to get into, start practicing simple sounds, then words, and then phrases. Huh. 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 Ha. Ha. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? It takes time to really practice up, but you guys get what I'm saying for setting that foundation.
Mm-hmm. I found it helped that I would have conversations with myself, just about just random things. It doesn't even have to be a conversation. It can just be back and forth words.
Yeah, just
Um,
expressing your inner mind through your voice just to get the practice.
Going back and forth between voices and, really trying to differentiate the two. Because eventually, if you do it long enough, the lines kind of become blurred and it can be a little difficult to remember what each of your distinct voices sound like, which has sort of become the case for me. Sometimes I kind of forget because I've just been bouncing back and forth for so long. um um
The lines
I
get
can't
a
remember
little
the
blurry.
Yeah, exactly. So it helps to go back and forth every so often. Maybe not for other people's benefit, but just for your own.
Yeah. And as you're getting started, you only may be able to say just a little bit before your voice starts getting sore and tired. That's
Hmm.
okay. Just take the rest. Or just take a rest. Remember your register and keep practicing with your voice. It will come
Hmm.
in time.
And celebrate the little wins as well as the big ones, because those are all going to be stepping stones on your road to wherever it is that you would like to end up.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you can really think of for voice training basics? I think I've covered everything I wanted to.
Um, I'm trying to think if I had anything to add about a lower register voice, because it's tough, because a lot of the time when I want to go lower, it's either as an imitation or to make fun of something. Like I like to make fun of, the southern accent a lot. Apologies to any southerners here. You guys just talk a little weird. So
To
whenever
be
I,
honest, everybody talks a little weird.
yeah, I'll go down here and be like, "Hey, what are y'all up to? What's going on?" You know, but that's not who talks like that. Maybe not that, you know, cadence, but I don't think anyone talks like that gravelly. So you don't want to make a caricature. You want it to sound like it's an actual voice that like a human person would have in everyday life. And I think that's where a lot of people tend to go wrong when they try to hit the lower end of the vocal spectrum. It ends up sounding more like a caricature than it does a natural speaking voice, which is definitely fair. I feel like the lower end is much trickier than the higher end, at least in my experience from what I've observed. Other people might have different experiences, and that's totally okay. But
Mm-hmm.
it becomes a little tricky. But the important thing to remember is where you want to end up. So if you keep a clear picture or sound, I guess, in this instance, in your mind and in your ears about where you want to end up, it becomes a lot easier instead of just, screwing around with your voice and then just picking something out of the blue because you end up being able to do that voice.
Yeah. Like, going back to a thing you mentioned earlier about doing the imitations, that's really how I got started with trying out and getting used to using different voices. Like, you all have heard, at this point, you've all heard how low I go, but, like, I can go super gravelly too if I really wanted. Like, I don't know how many of you know Inspector Gadget, the original cartoon, but they had a villain that had like a super gravelly voice, and then
Dr. Claw.
yes, Dr. Claw. And as a kid, I loved that voice. It just caught me. But surprisingly, I didn't get into death metal until like I was an adult. But like,
A lot of work.
yeah, even as a teenager, I was able to do
I'll get you next time, Gadget. Next time.
though I can't do that.
Very impressive.
Thank you. I can't do that for very long without really hurting my voice, because that is very taxing on the throat. But like, at first it was only able to do a few phrases, a word here or there, but now I'm getting close to being able to sing a full song in that voice. It's practice and dedication, consistency.
I used to imitate a lot of Transformers for the lower end. One of which actually being Soundwave from Transformers G1. His voice was like very much on the gravelly lower end. Obviously, it was very heavily synthesized as well because that's his character.
Yeah.
But yeah, it doesn't really matter where you find your starting point. The important part is finding it, and then from there it becomes a lot easier to sort of kind of map out where you want to end up.
Yeah, it really is. You don't have to figure out the exact end goal, but it really helps to know kind of where do you want to go with your voice. It's one of the few things that's completely within your control to change.
And who knows, like halfway through getting to where you want to go, you might just scrap the whole idea and then just want to go back. And that's totally fine too.
Absolutely. Not everybody actually wants to do voice training, even if they're trans. I have quite a few friends that don't care.
Yeah. Everyone's valid. And everyone is deserving of respect.
Absolutely.
But, the point is just go crazy with it. It's your life, it's your journey. Do what you want. I mean, obviously, as long as you're not hurting others, but I think that goes without saying.
Yeah, I say that I'm the same way. I don't think that it really matters what people want to do, as long as they're not hurting others. Who cares?
Exactly.